Mary Jo Potter is an angel investor and CEO of Healthcare Angels. Actively involved in the healthcare sector for 30 years, Mary Jo is highly influential when it comes to the healthcare innovation space. Nearly 20 years ago, her financial sensibilities, combined with a little luck, led to her early investment in a startup called Supercuts. Since then, she has followed her foundational belief that investments are best made with the team approach. With that in mind, she is a general partner on the investment committee of the Keiretsu Forum. With the forum, she founded Healthcare Angels, whose primary aim is to involve physicians in not only obtaining the desired outcome of successful returns for investors, but equally targeting solutions for the healthcare crisis in America. Please give a warm Chain Exchange welcome to Mary Jo Potter.
Hello. Actually, wonderful group. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about where blockchain is actually having an impact in the social side of life, where the for-profits, nonprofits are participating, the kinds of things that actually I hope you leave thinking there may be more opportunity in the social side of life than there is in the traditional for-profit side of life. There's been a number of studies. I really valued the one from Stanford the most. They looked at about 190 different blockchain projects and companies over the last 5 years. What are they doing? What's working? Where are we in the cycle? And I know in one of our panels, someone talked about the fact that there's still not a lot of confidence in the marketplace because they don't see a lot of results. Well, the good news is, I think, and again, I'm a bit bullish on blockchain, in the last few years, the majority of the projects that have started will start to bear fruit in 2019, 2020. So don't be surprised that we have a little lag here before you start seeing results. But there are some examples, and I thought I'd give you a few so you can have something to hang on to practically. I think the problem right now is it sounds so esoteric that people are a bit intimidated by the topic, and they connect crypto and blockchain, and so when crypto goes down, blockchain goes down, and they really shouldn't be connected. But let me give you a few examples of where it's actually working. And if you think about the opportunities, the way to think about blockchain is where are there opportunities within society for fraud, for distrust, for massive confusion, for inability to move goods, services, people, and money across borders. If you start thinking about all those kinds of dynamics, it helps you imagine where blockchain could help. Unfortunately, because again of the crypto dynamic, people are attaching it with all sorts of things, many of which don't need blockchain, quite frankly. If you look below the surface, that same project could have been done without blockchain. So the first thing you want to ask with all of these is, do you have to have blockchain to do it? And in about 60% of the cases where blockchain is currently being tested, if it weren't for blockchain, they couldn't do that particular activity. And about 40% are actually trying to take existing processes and make them better. So that's kind of a one way to frame it. So as you look at crypto opportunities that are attached to blockchain, really dig deep in how important is it to have blockchain as part of it. But let me give you a few examples of where it's being done. In what they call the democracy governance world, which, by the way, I happen to think may be one of the prime ways that this blockchain could be used in the next few years, you have examples in countries that are quite diverse and sometimes remote. They're usually smaller than a United States. But in Estonia, for instance, they have a program called e-Estonia. And one of the requirements of that blockchain activity is you will only enter your data for any of the governmental services once. And everything flows from that. And they're one of the earliest, I think they started in 2008. They're one of the earliest test cases that have been successful in the governmental sector, trying to remove, again, both fraud and identity problems within the system. So in the governance side, you're going to see a lot more opportunity for identity transfer, for voting. There's a company called Votem that's attempting to, again, solve the fraud, misuse, and even inability to vote I forget the exact numbers, but there are literally hundreds of thousands of people outside the U.S. that could have voted in our election. Less than 4% did. Part of it is because of our systems aren't set up very well. But so you'll see it, I think, in a number of countries, even here possibly, with things like voting. So again, the hook is where might there be either fraud, identity issues, distribution challenges, especially across borders. Take agriculture as another place where it's being tested a lot. And again, it tends to, this is the other theme in the social side, it tends to be very valuable to your small and mid-sized providers of services. An example, 25 million people around the world are involved in coffee production, distribution, and so on. And we only think of the large company, but that's 25 million organizations that somehow need to get it produced, get it distributed, get paid. All of that process is fraught with problems. Again, blockchain's being tested there. It's being, so far so good. They've at least got 1,000 farmers on it. They'd like to get to 1 million within the next few years. Another example is chicken farming. Who thinks of chickens having to be followed all the way through the system? But again, for a small to mid-sized farmer, it's very important that they legitimize what they've produced and also get it distributed and get paid sooner. So for your poorer countries, the ability to get people paid sooner and better is probably one of the key reasons that blockchain will be helpful. In healthcare, which is the world I live in most of the time, there's about 30% of the projects right now that are in play in blockchain are in healthcare. And where you think of it, the problems we have in healthcare, this interoperability, the problem there is we don't know how to share data effectively because of our regulations, but also because of our personal privacy propensities, and also the large purveyors of the systems aren't quite enthusiastic because they don't want to be able to have that interoperability allow their competitor to take over one of their clients that easily. So you can see why it's not happening. But there's a new technology being introduced that could allow the existing EHRs, EMRs to stay where they are, but the blockchain would be, if you will, almost like an add-on, which would allow the data to go there. It's almost a redundant process, but it would then allow it to be shared in a very effective and cost-efficient way. So that's an example. You see a lot of it in the pharma side, where, again, there's a concern about both time and cost and temperature for things like pharmaceuticals. To be able to both use sensor technology, AI technology, and blockchain to expedite that whole process, they think they can cut 25 or 30% out of the cost of getting all of that activity happening. So that's another practical application in healthcare. In finance, you see it a lot in, again, cross-border transfers of monies. That'll be a very common one. Payment systems in general, the ability to have some kind of a legitimate record, but also some level of privacy and efficiency is driving the financial side. So what's really occurring throughout the blockchain activity is looking at those areas where, again, if we didn't have blockchain, how will we do that activity? And from an investing standpoint, that's the very first thing we ask blockchain companies. Well, why do you have to have blockchain for that? Can't you just have a distributed ledger of some sort? Can't you just have a centralized system that has decentralized decision making? There's a lot of choices that they have, but hopefully what they're doing is they're looking at blockchain as the only way that they can do that particular project. So right now, about, again, 60% of the blockchain activity is being funded and developed by the for-profit sector, but about 40% is now being done in the nonprofit sector. And the Gates Foundation is an example of an organization that's very supportive of this activity. We see people like Carl Icahn and the Mount Sinai Institute of Innovation putting $100 million into trying to look at how can blockchain impact healthcare, help in innovation, And especially because the other thing in healthcare, which has not been true in the past, healthcare is becoming an international activity. You've got a lot of people from other parts of the world coming here for service. You have a lot of U.S. citizens going elsewhere, like in the dental side. Costs $30,000 to get your teeth here. If you want to go to Thailand for $3,000 and have a 2-week trip, it's all included. You're going to see a lot more cross-border, global kinds of activities. And again, things like blockchain can help expedite the transfer of information, transfer of monies, making sure that, again, the fraud and abuse side is minimized. So anyway, those are just examples of hopefully give you a little bit of a frame in how to both look for and think about blockchain wherever you're involved, but also be able to evaluate from an investment standpoint the likelihood of that particular blockchain activity or blockchain and crypto activity being successful. My only sort of message right now, given the market with crypto, is they don't necessarily have to go together. But the important thing is, if crypto can help expedite a blockchain activity in the social sector, that really brings the mission and money combination together. So thank you.